Hi everyone, it's Penny and Kim from FCSS here lighting up your Friday with the 5 stars of strengthening families. Today we're going to continue with our knowledge series, specifically speaking about knowledge of parenting and development, child-teen development. So last week we talked about breaking through the teenage shell. We talked a little bit about how that shell was protective and how they needed a safe place to feel vulnerable in. And we invited you to take one small step in connecting after any type of separation, whether it be physical or emotional, and a small connection of some kind. So even just a look, a smile, looking at them when they come into the room, anything you can manage that just creates that sense of, I see you, you're important to me. And whether you're gone for the day, whether you're gone for 5 minutes, whether they've just gone down to their bedroom, anytime you come back into contact, you do that one small step. So hopefully you had an opportunity to give that a try. And if you did, most likely you're going to see a little bit of cracks in that shell occasionally. All right, so today Kim is going to continue on with our next question.
Our next question on knowledge is, what kinds of physical and emotional changes are your teens going through? Penny.
Okay, so this topic is immense, right? I mean, yeah, so I know I've likened teenagehood to toddlerhood. And again, what research has shown us and is telling us is that this is the second opportunity for you parents where their brain is kind of going through a rewiring process.
Yes.
So 0 to 5, right? We have that massive, their brain is making all these connections and then it's pruning off the ones it's not using. So this happens again to a smaller extent in adolescence where, you know, they're making different connections. So you have that another opportunity of rapid growth, although not as rapid, and then that pruning process. So this is your opportunity to make impact again, in addition to toddlerhood, if you were able to do that, or now if you weren't as much. So, you know, building that emotional language and, you know, connecting with them, and because we know that connection and a buffering adult builds strong architecture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know that trauma and neglect weakens architecture of the brain. So we now have an opportunity to strengthen those brains even more. So that's one thing that's happening in their bodies. And then of course we have puberty, right? Hormones, body changes. Yeah, that doesn't happen in toddlerhood. So that's a new and interesting process. So physically, there's lots going on.
Yes.
Emotionally, and also physically, right? We're growing, you know, different body parts that we didn't have before, body parts that are, you know, private, and we're learning about our bodies changing. And sometimes we're rapid growth spurts. So we're all arms and legs, and we're awkward and we're clumsy. And, you know, that's just a process. And so I would encourage you to let your teens know it's a process and that it's not set in stone. You're not going to be clumsy forever. But when your limbs grow quickly, it takes your brain and your body senses, your proprioception, time to catch up with that, to go, okay, this is how far my arm can reach. That's why I'm constantly knocking over my milk, because before my arm only reached here, now it reaches over here and I'm going whap. Or your feet, your legs, right? It's like, that takes time. And then emotionally, right? It's like, yeah, it's like a toddler in that they don't even understand a lot of the time the changes. So you have all these physical changes, you have hormonal changes, you have brain changes going on. And so there's going to be times when they are lashing out and they are angry and they don't even know why, or they're defiant. And so giving them that beautiful sense of, this is what's going on in your body. So I understand that sometimes it's going to be too much for you. And, you know, I'm here to talk. I'm here to listen, right? These are the limits on your behavior. And I understand, because I mean, I've heard this from parents and I've read about it in research that when kids know, or teens know that this is happening, they can kind of breathe a sigh of relief, because it's scary when you do things and you don't know why you're doing them, especially if those are big feelings, right? Like lashing out at someone and then going, okay, I don't know what's going on, right? And yeah, so, and they're creating that sense of self. So they're trying to figure out, how do I fit in my family, and how am I going to become my own person, and what ideas are different, and how do I handle those ideas, and how do I handle the stress of getting older, and how do I handle the fact that I'm going to have to support myself. And, you know, this is a big stressful time, right? For you as parents and for your kiddos, right? So having that knowledge, and there's lots of really good resources, but I'm going to stop talking right now and I'm going to let Kim talk, and then we'll talk about resources.
I just wanted to add, you know, when you're talking about all the changes that are happening and they're not sure about the changes, no, this is where normalizing just comes in so importantly. And also sort of the get in, the get out that I talked about last week too, because, you know, if they say something, or, you know, tell you about something that's happening in their body, we normalize that as best we can. You know, I remember when that happened for me too, and this is what I did, but not asking too many questions, and not going on and telling them the, you know, every detail about it. They don't need that. They'll close that shell we talked about last week, will come up, and they won't want to talk about it with you anymore. So this is why sort of less is more, and sometimes in these cases, especially if it's something that's quite vulnerable. I remember when my daughter was a teenager, we had to have a code word for some of the bodily functions that went on as a young female, because it was too much to actually say the actual word menstruation, you know. So little things like that, you know. And the other thing I want to talk about too is the individuation process. This is kind of shifting gears here. So so from the physical sort of the more emotional, what's going on in their bodies. At this age, like you talked about, that window that's opening up, that reorganization that neuroscience is showing is happening as teenagers. So there's this really great opportunity. And as they do, they're growing and they're maturing. And part of that growing and maturation process is the individuation process, which is where they become very idealistic thinkers. So they'll say things that are just ideal. I can't believe that person did it that way. You know, I would never. This is how I would do things, and you know, and it's very idealistic. But it's because they're sort of trying it out. They're coming up with their own ideas. They seem, you know, pretty grandiose, or to us, or whatever the word is, pretty grand, pretty big to us. So that's when we might say, I wonder, rather than, no, that's not going to work, you know. So this helps to just kind of keep them thinking and practicing. But just so you know, that's oftentimes why kids have such a strong opinion on things. It's part of the individuation process. It's quite normal and quite healthy, really. So if we can recognize that and see that for what it is, rather than thinking, oh man, you know, they're stuck in their ways or stubborn, right? That could be the individuation process that we're seeing. So yeah, so idealistic thinking, and then also normalizing. Those are my two big, I think, biggies for this topic. As far as knowledge, where we can get more knowledge on this, I think, Penny, you had a really good idea when we were talking about this earlier. With AHS has a good resource, do they not?
Yeah, so you can for sure visit the Alberta Health Services website and navigate through that. They have tremendously good resources for parents, whether you're talking about sex with your kids or, mental health or all those kinds of things. And then there are several very good body books. So I will put those in the comments because I don't have those accessible at the moment, the authors. So I would have to get the authors' names. But talking with your local health nurse about resources is a great place, and she'll be able, or he will be able to give you any kind of information. Call your local community health office, call a family support worker from FCSS, and they will find you resources. So it is important when you're searching for resources that you vet your sources, because the internet is full of all kinds of information. We want to just make sure that you're getting evidence-based, research-based, information that's supported.
I do want to clarify one thing that I said too about the code word. I just want to know that it's important to be using the proper words for the anatomy of the body, and so rather than it is very important to do that. So when I meant code word is in public or something like that, if my daughter needed to tell me something, there was a code so that I would know. But when we were talking, we did use the proper terminology. It's important for them to know that. So I wanted to clear that up.
Okay. Yeah. And I got that as a sort of a saving face in public, because I know that, those kinds of things are quite private and personal when they first start with young girls. And it is important to preserve your dignity out in public. So distinction. Yeah.
Yeah, and keeping the doors open for communication, just letting you know, like sometimes these topics are embarrassing. They're embarrassing for me too, but you know what? I'm willing to go there with you, and I'm an answer to the best of my ability. So making sure you let them know that you can handle the tough questions.
And being willing to get awkward,
yes,
is really important. So it doesn't have to be beautiful or textbook. It just has to be honest and authentic, and they need to know that you're willing to talk about it. Because I think a lot of parents are worried about saying the wrong thing, right? And one tactic I learned from and then your school is another resource, by the way. Your family liaison worker in your school system usually teaches a health unit. And so if you're looking for information, he or she will have information about and what your child's already learning. So they talked about, chances are your child already knows more than you think they do. So start off the conversation by, what do you know about this? What have you learned about menstruation? What do you know about puberty, right? And letting them start the conversation if they're willing. And then you're not already talking about things they know about, and they're like, Mom, I already know this, right? Yeah. So in summary, huge changes. They need our grace. You need to give yourself grace, because they're huge changes for you too. And everybody is uncertain and a little bit afraid and overwhelmed. And sometimes they're your baby, and sometimes they're a stranger, and that can be difficult. Just giving yourself and them a lot of grace and space, and try to find the fun when you can, because sometimes, a lot of times, they're really great fun. And humor. In my house, humor works so much. Yeah. Like when we're getting the sort of, you're so mean, we can do wonderful things with humor. Okay, enough for me. Our challenge for the week is to try to do a little research. If you're unsure about what is happening with your preteen or teen, check out some websites. Again, reliable sources, Alberta Health Services, the school system. If you happen to see a counselor, or find out what you don't already know and see how that might support you in parenting, making parenting a little bit easier.
Yeah.
In tumultuous times. All right, so that's it for today, unless I missed anything, Kim.
Oh, that's a wrap.
Okay, we will see you all next week with the third installment in our knowledge series. Have a good weekend, everyone.
See you.